In the run-up to the current elections, a slew of international media have raised serious questions and offered harsh criticism of the impact Prime Minister Modi's 2 terms have had on the health of India's democracy. Swapan Dasgupta has been refuting these in his columns. Part 2 of our conversation starts with this issue. You wrote recently in the Times of India, in your column in the Times of India, and this was a reaction to several different international media raising red flags and questions about the nature of India's democracy. This column was titled, Western Media is Already Out to Undermine the Legitimacy of a Modi Win, and you want to call it toolkit politics. What's going on? Why would Western media feel, why would they do it? I mean, they're just calling out, and they're calling out what people in India can also see, and which is, chief ministers being jailed before elections. There are things that are happening which anybody would call out. So it doesn't have to be Western media. Why are you interpreting Western media, interpreting India in this manner as a problem, as something where they're of malafide intent?
Well, this move against Modi, as I've often written, and I've written very exhaustively on this subject, predates the incarceration of Hemant Soren and Arvind Kejriwal, which is just a very recent phenomenon. This has been happening far greater. Where today what they're saying is that in India is an elective autocracy. Democracy has failed the test in India. This is not, this is a illiberal state. Various categories have been used to describe India.
And different index.
Yeah, and there's even suggestions that the media is stifled, that the media is strangled. We're not realizing that I think the number of media outlets has just multiplied in mushrooms, no doubt also, as someone's pointed out, thanks to a very, very generous data policy of the government, whereby cheap data allows people to actually access the market in much more meaningful ways than has ever been possible in this way. So I don't think nobody is stifling your voice. You can say what you want to within bounds. We all know what the boundaries are, and nobody wants to cross that. So is it because a certain group of people who were at the helm prior to 2014 feel that they have been politically dispossessed, that their voice no longer counts? Now, you can call them the Khan Market Brigade, you can call them the Baba Logs, you can call them whatever you feel like. I mean, those are caricature terms. But I think what we realize is that there was an old establishment, cosmopolitan, slightly westernized, anglicized, familiar with comfortable with the world, exactly. And they have been replaced by people who are probably members of a provincial elite, whose ways, the cultural norms, etc., are still rooted in the provinces. And this is a source of great discomfiture. The fact that Amit Shah today will not speak in English. The fact that Modi does not, he understands it. So does Amit Shah. But they'll say, bhai, usko translate karke bhej do mere paas. No problem. Aap Bangla mein likho. Usko hum Hindi mein koi translate.
So you're saying that India correspondents and representing Western media have a problem with the new elite?
First of all, they don't know. I'm telling you, the foreign media in particular know only some people in Delhi. Those people, unfortunately for them, no longer matter very much. And that bitterness of that people is manifesting itself. They are unfamiliar, they do not know, they do not have dinner with, they do not socially mix with people of the BJP because they don't know them. They can't relate to them because that's a different India. The cultural mindset is very, very different. And unfortunately, this prejudice, or rather this difference, has been elevated into a philosophy. And that philosophy finds itself in the sense that, democracy in India is gone. they thought that, that when in 2016 they would say this award wapsi would lead to a complete paralysis in India's intellectual firmament. It didn't happen that way at all. It didn't happen.
Okay, so let's say that I go with this argument, but what about the fact that there are several foreign correspondents who have, the lady from Australia who recently said that her visa came in only last minute and she was told that her stories crossed certain lines by the government. The French journalist who went after 25 years. We had an American journalist talk about how she was called to meet, the INB officials and the minister and told, censured in subtle ways or not so subtle ways. So I think it's not just about not knowing the new elite and the new power brokers in Lutyens Delhi, isn't it? Because at the end of the day, there is a new elite that's replaced the old elite, and they're still all in Lutyens Delhi. And I'm going to ask you to describe the new Lutyens Delhi elite in a bit. But isn't it factually not just because they're in, they're connecting with the old elite who's bitter, and then that's getting manifested as a narrative? There is more going on, and you've got to accept that.
No. As far as the Australian lady is concerned, I think it was a consequence of certain reportage which had more to do with the Khalistanis rather than anything else. I think that was the issue there. It had more to do with the type of controversy which we are seeing with the Washington Post and all that of late. I'm clueless as to why the poor French lady who's been there for 25 years was there. I don't believe that. I believe that probably was a very, very extreme case. But there are Americans who are running, people with American passports who are running news portals which are, to put it mildly, a bit too damning of Modi. There are other forms of funding issues which can be highlighted, but that's not the issue. But I mean, let's put it this way: it's not perfect, but by and large, the overall media environment in India is fine. Three cases, I don't think, is equivalent to suggesting that media that voices have been stifled, that Indians don't have a say in what they're doing, that the overall climate of democracy in India has taken a battering. I don't think that's the case. I think the opposition has the same sort of facilities to echo their views. Unfortunately, they couldn't get their act together. They couldn't put up a very what appears to be a meaningful fight in this election. Fault of that does not belong to the Modi government, and there are too many people in the opposition who want to switch sides. And I think there is a lot of resentment in the BJP at the fact that a lot of people have been allowed to switch sides. He says we are, and that's a separate matter altogether.
I just want to tell you, before 2014, the BJP prided itself about being the party with a difference, that it would not, that it was about principles, that it would be governed by these principles, and it had a certain idea and vision of India that it wanted to make, come good. And yet today, you have any means being adopted to keep power in the states. We've seen in Maharashtra, we have seen, the NCP split. I can't, it's so difficult sometimes to now know which one is who. The Shiv Sena has split. You have instances like the one we saw in Surat, we've seen in Indore. Why is the BJP compromising in this fashion, Swapan? And as somebody,
Let's put it this way. I don't know if the issues in Surat and Indore were manipulated by the BJP, but whatever it is, it was needless, because in both these constituencies, these were as safe the seats for the BJP as possible. Both of them. I mean, they couldn't. I mean, there was not even a hint of competition in these two. But let me put it this way: that if you were to look at it in very realpolitik terms, and I'm not necessarily saying I agree with the realpolitik terms, but if you look at it in really, one of the great advantages of this great muddle in Maharashtra, and Maharashtra is a classic case of the worst form of muddle which has taken place, is that the BJP has ousted the Shiv Sena as the number one party. Now the question is, was it necessary to do it? I mean, the Shiv Sena as a movement which Bal Thackeray, for good or for bad, actually nurtured and brought up, is no longer there. I mean, it has been decimated. It has been crippled to a very large extent. Maybe it will recover. Maybe it won't recover. I don't know.
That's not my question. Swapan, my question is the party with
the question is, was it necessary? Is it a bit? Are you saying is it a bit of an overkill? I don't know if it's a bit of an overkill. I don't like the fact that a lot of people who are from dodgy backgrounds will share the same table with me in the BJP. I don't like it because I look at some of them with great deal of suspicion. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I should say, okay, they've reformed themselves. But I'm yet to make that transition.
Do you think that this has had a negative impact on the BJP's brand image? The fact that
yes, it's changed the brand image.
It's
changed the brand image. I mean, whether it's negative or positive, we'll have to see after the elections when we can do a more rounded analysis of it. But it's certainly changed. I cannot contest.
And you're not comfortable with it?
I'm not comfortable with a lot of people. I'm comfortable with many people. I'm not comfortable with a lot of people. Today, for instance, I mean, I was just talking to someone, and one BJP person who was sort of half-heartedly campaigning in Bengal. And he said, why? I said, why? He said, Ki hobe? What's the need? This is part of the Trinamool Alumni Association. So now, now I don't want to say anything, but there are people. Maybe the process of integration is still a work in progress.
How are you adjusting to being in the party? I mean, when you were in the Rajya Sabha, you made it a point to say that you were there not as a BJP member of parliament, right? You used to make it a point to underline that. Today, you're definitely part of the BJP. You fought on a BJP ticket in 2021 in the brutal, bruising world of Bengal politics. What's it been like for you, this journey?
Well,
also, one sec. You were the original old elite, isn't it? Look at your, St. Stephen's, Oxford, journalist, Calcutta, elite of Kolkata, elite in Delhi. How are you adjusting? What does it mean to you to belong to the BJP today in this context that I've drawn up of your own life and times?
Yeah, well, put it this way. Ideologically, I've always been part of the BJP family, as it were, for a very, very long time. Okay, I don't think anyone will contest that thing. Now, as far as since I was a presidential nominee, I thought I would respect that thing and say, look, I must keep that status intact by not being too overtly identified with the BJP, especially, there are a lot of things in parliament which requires, too much of shouting and going into the well. All that was not for me. So that was, okay, you might say it was awkward, but it was not impossible. And it could be done with a great deal of dignity without any compromise and, anyone being compromised. And everyone understood it. The leadership of the BJP too understood it. And they said, you keep your own independent identity intact. So that way. Now, being in the party means that there are you have to swallow many bitter pills at times, and make which is part of life, because it's a huge party, and not every decision is something which is palatable for you personally, but there it goes. But broadly speaking, I don't think there is anything in the party which prevents you from overall maintaining your loyalty as well as stating or being faithful to what you call principles. So if I say that, look, I'm uncomfortable with a lot of some of these new entrants, I don't think anyone in the top leadership is going to say, how can you be uncomfortable? I'm just stating an obvious thing, and it's also true as far as. So it's impossible to sort of put it in a one sentence, but all I can say is that, okay, it has its plus points. Okay, but there are some negative features which you have to tolerate.
So how would you describe the new elite in Lutyens Delhi?
I don't know what they're really doing.
It's still Lutyens Delhi. The address hasn't changed.
Yeah, it is.
It
is Lutyens.
How would you describe? Because
firstly, the thing about what is really changed about Lutyens Delhi, one thing, is that Lutyens Delhi in the past used to have a large number of what might be called permanent residents, as opposed to transitory residents. It's meant to be a transit camp. I mean, you stay there for 4 years. It's like I used to often call it a great 5-star hotel where you check in, but after 5 years or 10 years, whatever the time is, you've got to check out. So don't make it your home. It's not your home. It's a transit camp. So there used to be in earlier dispensation certain people who were just permanent residents. That category has gone. That category has been turfed out. There's been a greater degree of streamlining of this. Today, you have people who are basically MPs, who are ministers, who are Supreme Court judges, those who are there by virtue of the post they hold, the occupation they have. And that, to my mind, is a very, very big thing. Secondly, and this is coming to the social part of it. Earlier in the days, particularly in the time of the UPA 1 or 2, 1 and 2, every parliament session used to see wonderful, beautiful parties in Delhi, hosted by these people, what a chief minister friend of mine called the MOS syndrome. The ministers of state used to give these things. And those parties have disappeared. So you don't have beautiful dinner parties any longer. You may have discreet dinner parties, but those sort of lovely evening cocktails and things are a thing of the past now. So there's been a change in the overall social environment.
And what are the markers? What are the markers? At one point, Delhi and Lutyens Delhi, it was your educational profile.
Yeah, you see, I belong to
all the boxes, right?
Yeah, look,
what are the markers of the new elite?
Look, I belong to a WhatsApp group, for example, which is of my old alumni association of my college in Delhi. And I find myself in a woeful minority of one when it comes to certain political views and things. These are people who have not adjusted to the new dispensation at all. So it's there. So I'm a bit of a oddball, if you might call it that way. But yes, you're right. I can interact. I have an easy entry pass into the world of the old elite. And I can manage to straddle both the worlds, which is a lovely, enviable situation to be in. My friend Arun Jaitley used to do it even better, but he could manage both the things, and that was a good linkage. Sometimes in India, politics operates through confrontation, through assertion of policies. Sometimes they work through by building bridges, which is necessary. Which is necessary when is impossible. There's no preordained definition to what is there necessary where. But we know that sometimes bridge building too is there necessary, and sometimes you need to state your positions more assertively. So I guess we too can have our uses.
Swapan Dasgupta, thank you so much for making time. Good luck. And yes, we'll keep talking.
Thank you.
Thank you.